Coming into your ears live from a basement in New Jersey.
But it's not live.
It's not live, though. The Scott and Smiz Show.
Hello, and for those of you joining us for the very first time, this is the Scott and Smiz Show. All right, I am Scott, and this guy sitting right across from me here is Smiz. Mr. Smiz, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just terrific. And for those of you who are listening to the Scott and Smiz Show for the very first time, this is a podcast where the great conversations never stop.
They never, ever stop.
Never, ever stop. And there is plenty for us to be discussing on today's episode because we are facing the grim aftermath that is the second Republican debate for the 2016 primary.
Absolutely, and for those of you who have listened to us in the past, you know, I know we covered current events. This might not have been something that you thought we might touch on or something like that, but listen, we're up on those current events.
Yeah.
All right? We're going to stay up on those current events.
We sat down and watched all 3 hours of this debate just to give you a little bit of coverage on it and a little bit of a different perspective than you may have had on it if you watched it.
Exactly. So we put a little time into it. Why don't you put a little time into us and take a look at this discussion we're about to have.
Exactly. And this overfilled circus that is the Republican primary that had 11 people on the main stage last night.
11 people. Now, Smiz, I mean, you know me, all right? I don't watch a whole lot of this stuff.
Right.
All right? You know, I'm not too into news, as we've discussed this before. Everybody who has listened knows where I get my news. For those of you who don't, you know, I'm big on social media. I don't watch a whole lot of TV. Yeah. All right, so this was, you know, a big thing for me. I'm watching 11 dudes up on this stage. Right?
There's one woman, to be fair.
I'm sorry. 10 dudes, one woman. All right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm watching this whole thing unfold in front of me, all right? This being something I don't watch too much, you know, it was kind of rare that you catch somebody like Donald Trump involved in this before. And as I've told you, you know, Donald Trump has been a big energy throughout, you know, me growing up and stuff like that. You know, he's something that's been, you know, a household name, I'm sure, for you as well.
Right.
Okay.
And I wanted to also go over just from starters, just watching the very beginning of this debate. We had those lovely introductions that all 11 candidates gave us, and we
all know how many kids they have.
Yeah, the majority of them decided to talk about I have a wife and 2 kids, and you know, apparently.
And let me bump in there real quick, man. All right. It's great to have kids.
Terrific.
Great to have a family.
Huge.
All right. But we're looking for a goddamn leader. Yeah. All right. And, you know, whether, you know, we're looking for a leader with family values or not, that should not have been the opening point and or discussion.
Right. Because this wasn't a question of when did you get married and how many kids did you have? No.
Yeah.
But it
When's
was
your
just
anniversary?
Yeah.
Like,
introduce yourself to the 23 million viewers that are watching out there.
Somebody like me, all right? Somebody who isn't up on political stuff like this. Tell me who you are.
Yeah.
I don't know you.
Tell me what your beliefs are, your platform, even if it's really, you know, short and simple to the point. I know you can only talk about so much on your introduction, but right there off the bat, and it was half the candidates that were doing this, that were just deciding to talk about their family as if that's the most important reason I'm going to vote for you.
Exactly, but you know what I mean? Appeal to somebody like myself. Appeal to the ignorant millennial.
Yeah.
All right? The ignorant millennial. And folks, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I don't know who these people are.
Right,
I have
you're being
no
introduced
clue.
to them for the very first time,
For the
which
very
is
first time.
which is a big point of these debates in the first place.
Every person up there, aside from Chris Christie and Donald Trump, all right, I had no clue who they were.
Really?
All right, and which is going to honestly give some humor to tonight's discussion.
Yeah, and just to, you know, neither of us are big political experts here. We're just 2 regular young guys from New Jersey.
Trying to make it.
And just giving you our perspective on what we saw last night. You know, I graduated with one of my majors was political science at Rutgers University, so I have a little bit of political knowledge here. Scott plays himself more as, you know, the average uninformed voter, which is also a very important perspective because the majority of those people are uninformed voters.
To touch on that, you mentioned Jersey. I'm going to go completely offhand for a second.
Okay.
I think, almost positive, okay, the other night we stopped in Patterson. We got some Arabic dessert from this wonderful bakery. I think I had a Fetty Wap sighting.
Oh.
All right.
Oh.
All right.
Oh,
All right.
sound the horn.
Sound the horn.
We saw Fetty Wap.
1738. All right. So, all right, back to the political. Just so you know what we see on a daily basis. All right, French Montana, fabulous. Fetty Wap.
So speaking of Fetty Wap, the Republican debate on CNN.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we had a lot of interesting stuff there. Again, for those of you who weren't aware of the candidates on the stage, just to go through them real quick, there were Donald Trump, of course, Rand Paul, Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, Carly Fiorina, the only woman on the stage, John Kasich, Mike Huckabee, and Marco Rubio.
Yeah, wait till you hear my names for these people.
Yeah, you got a little bit of a sub-description for some of them.
Yeah, for the average uninformed millennial. I have our own names for these people.
And one thing that was interesting is one of the very ultimate important questions that CNN had to ask these candidates at the tail end of the debate was, what would your Secret Service nickname be? And that was really kind of odd.
Was that really the question the American people wanted to know the answer to?
Yeah, because people wanted to talk about it because Ronald Reagan's Secret Service nickname, for example, was Rawhide for all his acting gigs way back when. So we need to hear each of them, and some of them are just some of the weirdest.
And I'm not going to lie to you, towards the end of the debate, I didn't watch probably the last...
You taper off after 3 hours of political rhetoric.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
Republican,
ladies and gentlemen, last
jargon.
night I watched about a solid hour and a half of this debate with my close friend across the table here. Watch a solid hour and a half. You'd say that, right?
Easily. It was more like 2 hours.
And
the first 2 hours of the debate.
To show the dedication of my friend, and I'd watched at least another hour and change of this stuff, but I couldn't towards the end. I just couldn't do it anymore.
Well, yeah. You pretty much watched the entire thing then, but that very end, it's just going on and on and on.
I mean,
even Donald Trump thought the debate was too long.
Yeah, towards the end, you really start to feel for these people, and they're up there being asked questions that you would not want to be asked past the 2.5 hour mark.
No, really, it's just enough.
Especially the nicknames, man. That's really gonna be the last question. That should have been the first question.
It wasn't the very last question. They did a very smart thing with what the very last question was, and it was kind of just like, what can we expect to see change from America after you leave office as president? Exactly. And they each had their very good closing speeches. A lot of it was a lot of bullshit, but then again, I feel like a lot of this debate was a lot of bullshit altogether because you had no fact checkers up there.
Like I said, fact checkers, we're going to see all that stuff in the next couple of days. Okay,
we're already seeing it.
We're already seeing, and like I said, I don't watch a whole lot of this stuff, so my news is going to be from you, my friend. But these fact checkers will come to light. All the true facts are going to surface. I know you're going to touch on some of them tonight, which is going to give people a lot of insight who might have not heard this stuff yet.
Right.
But it was more of a circus last night.
Oh, yeah. To be fair, I think it was definitely not as big of a circus as the first debate. We didn't have any of those real, memorable moments like Donald Trump dropping Rosie O'Donnell, calling her a fat pig or something like that. We didn't have any of that real, soundbite sort of material.
You know what the scary thing is, and I've mentioned this before in past shows. Two things I don't really like to discuss are, one, religious views, and two, political views.
Right.
Not something you discuss upon people you don't know. Okay?
Of course.
But I'm going to mention this one thing. The scary thing to me, all right, out of the 11 clowns that were up there last night, all right, there was two people I had a favor to, okay?
I feel like you need to at least have some.
At least something, right?
You got to find a needle in a haystack.
I'm even going to say three.
Three, okay.
I'm even going to say three, okay? And I'm not going to put them in any particular order, and the way I say them doesn't mean I like them more or less than the other people. But,
that you're going to even vote for him.
Exactly, because there's obviously a lot more stuff that's going to go on now between now and the time that I do place a vote.
Absolutely, and this is only one party.
Yeah, but all right, Kasich.
John Kasich, okay, for the governor of Ohio.
Yeah, Rand Paul. I never thought I'd throw his name out there.
Kentucky senator.
And last but not least, Donald Trump. That they all do some really, really good views out there, and I can respect a lot of their ideas. Not all of them to the fullest extent,
right?
But I can respect a lot of their ideas and views on things and where they'd like to go. But throwing a name like Trump in there, all right, to say that
it's really throwing a monkey wrench into this debate.
If you would ask me a couple months ago, Scott, Donald Trump, do you think in the next couple months or on maybe the second Republican presidential debate that you might support some of his views or support where he's going with things? I'd be like, Smizzy, you're out of your goddamn mind. I would never be able to support somebody like that. Donald Trump is a clown. All right, but The truth of the matter is, man, I mean, some of these freaking people up there, if you're a person who doesn't watch the news, you're a person who's used to dealing with regular people on an everyday basis. I'm a blue-collar guy, all right? I work for every dollar I make.
Yeah, I think out of the two of us, you're definitely the conservative one.
All right, and I'm proud to say it. I'm proud to be a part of that blue-collar community and, you know, have to work for every dollar I get because I'm a true red-blooded fucking American. All right, red, white, and blue all day.
Mark.
All right. To say that, you know, I kind of supported some of Donald Trump's views are kind of scary, but where we stand right now, and, you know, I really hate to say this, but like I said, and I watch a lot of this news stuff, these guys really threw it at me last night, and they kind of made me realize, and I hate to say I fell into some of their views, but they kind of made me realize where we are right now as a country, where we are right now as the United States of America, and where Barack Obama really put us is a scary thing to realize.
Well, I'm going to think that you watched a little bit too much of that debate, but that's my own opinion because
Okay.
I'm kind of someone who doesn't look at the past 8 years and see us in a worse spot than we were when George W. Bush,
I don't know,
Republican
but I mean,
leader, was leaving office with the economy.
It depends. It
was.
depends where you see yourself and where your political values lie.
I just see the values just lying in overall progress, but I think that's a totally different discussion. That
Overall progress in certain areas that you may appreciate more than I do.
Okay.
But then we're getting into a touchy subject of, you know, where I would share my political views and things like that, which is something
Right.
we got to be vague on because I want to appeal to everybody that's going to listen to this show.
I agree, and you know, even though I don't see myself voting for any of these people by any chance in the debate, I still think that to have an educated discussion about these things, just based on just the overall reaction and looking at, you know, some of these people making, you know, really absurd comments, some very rational comments. In certain instances, you look at
the interesting thing is, which I'm sure we're going to do, we're going to probably follow up after every debate, you know, especially if people do take a liking to this.
Definitely.
I'd like to see where our conversations lie after, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and I hope I don't sound like an imbecile on the air. All right, but there is going to be a Democratic debate.
There is. There's going to be a Democratic debate in October. CNN's also going to be hosting that. And we don't even know exactly who's going to be in that debate because we're still waiting on people like Vice President Joe Biden to determine if he's going to run or not. We have Hillary Clinton. We have Bernie Sanders. The difference with the Democratic debate versus the Republican debate is the quantity. You know, you look at the Democrats and
How many people are they going to have on the stage?
they're probably...
I know they're waiting on certain people, but...
Well, right now you have Hillary Clinton, obviously, Bernie Sanders. You have a guy named Jim Webb. And you have a Maryland governor named Martin O'Malley. You have a guy named Lincoln Chafee. But that's pretty much it. There's not a lot of people outside of that really, you know, take us down that path of, you know, it's not going to be this giant clown car that you saw with the whole Republican debate.
Yeah.
So when we come back, right after this quick break, we're really going to get into the meat and potatoes of this Republican debate and dissect each and every one of these candidates. So be sure to stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
Hey guys, be sure to keep track of every upcoming episode of the Scott and Smiz Show by liking us at facebook.com/Scott and Smiz. If you have any stories you'd like for us to discuss, leave us a post or send an email to scottandsmiz@gmail.com.
Oh boy. Yeah.
You know we're on, right?
We're on?
Yeah,
Right now.
we're back.
Ooh!
So, welcome back to the Scott and Smiz Show, everyone. That was a ridiculously long break you sat through. And I'm sure you were reminded to like us on the Facebook page at facebook.com/Scott and Smiz.
They were not reminded, but they just were.
Yeah, just were. No, they were actually reminded.
Now they know.
Yeah, okay. If they don't know, now they know.
They know.
They know. So, we are talking about tonight our one and only headline, which is the second debate for the Republican Party for their primary in 2016. And we're going to start off by going through all of these candidates.
All of them.
All of them.
Let's go.
They really are.
But we're not gonna spend too much time on them. We're just gonna hit them real quick.
Touch on this. Just some remarks that we got, and I think one guy. Let's look at here. You got the list of these 10 guys.
Let's go. Hit him. Let's go.
Ted Cruz, go.
Ted Cruz. All right, Mr. Ted Cruz. Okay. Ted Cruz.
How'd you think of his appearance on that
All right,
debate?
listen,
That was really
his
interesting.
Let me tell you something. I was watching this thing in HD. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Super HD.
This guy was literally trying to make love with anybody and everybody on the other side of that camera.
He just had this really seductive look.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you, America.
My name is Ted Cruz. I'm from Texas, and I want to know what you want to know.
Yeah.
Let me be your president.
And it's just like, I guess, a lot of politicians, they do that. And some of them, and some of the candidates.
I felt like he should have had a poodle on his lap half the time he was talking.
They were just looking at the camera, and they're trying to be intimate with the viewer and try to say, I'm talking to you, the voter out there. But
yeah,
with
Ted
Cruz and the way that he talks, it just came off as
he was coming across as a half-assed Dr. Evil with hair. Okay,
and it was just so creepy. It was just like, and he's like sweating under his lip, and it's just like.
Never mind, it looked like he got punched on one side of the face before he came in.
you kept making that remark.
I'm not one.
Like he had one big fat lip.
I'm not one to really comment on anybody's looks, but this guy definitely said something wrong in the parking lot and got punched in the mouth before he came in.
Yeah, and maybe in the nose too, because his nose looked a little crooked.
Owen Wilson out.
You know what? It's okay to judge these politicians' appearances because you know what? They put themselves on that stage and they set them up for this.
Well, listen, they're out there just like anybody else, man. They're trying to get a job done.
They're trying to get a job done, and they're trying to get their agenda off the ground and get it into the hearts and minds of many of the Republican voters that will start voting on February 1st when the first Iowa primary takes place.
Iowa.
So Ted Cruz, he also was really going off about this Iran deal. He kept sticking to those constant talking points of the Iran deal. I'm gonna rip it up on day one when I enter the White House, and
see how well that goes there, Ted.
Some of these other candidates were thinking a lot more smarter about things. You had guys like Kasich and Rand Paul saying, why would I automatically on day one go into the White House and just rip up the Iran deal immediately? Sure, it's not a perfect deal by any means. Iran and the United States are both unhappy with it, but you know something? They both said, I'm going to look it over, and if Iran is complying, I'm going to stick with the deal. And, it's just, I felt like there was a lot of that fear tactic going overboard there.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys tried to really play that game. They really wanted to scare these people into giving them the vote.
Yeah.
Which, listen, man, for someone who doesn't watch this shit too much, you try to throw fear at me, all right? You're going to try to throw fear at me to get my vote?
Right.
Get the hell out of here, all right?
Really?
Listen, enough about Teddy. On to the next one.
Yeah, so on to the next one. We got one of the front runners that have been in the primary lately. He's nearly tied with Donald Trump going into this debate. Was the only African American candidate on the stage, mind you, and the only pediatric neurosurgeon on the stage, Dr. Ben Carson. And holy shit, did he look bad.
Yeah, you know what? I really don't know if this guy should have taken some talking classes or something like that before he came on this stage.
Just a public speaking course,
But, I mean...
he's got enough degrees.
This guy right here, he might have been very, very good about what he did.
Yeah,
and
in the
professional world. But as far as talking, all right, that whole debate last night was like he was trying to tell me some bad news about a kid I did not have.
It's just, I really want to get my, point.
Yeah.
Even
when he was confronted by like Chris Christie or something like that, or they threw something at him like, "Oh, you said this or you said that."
He looked like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah,
it was a nightmare.
Yeah. Never mind the suit he wore to the debate, but we're not even going to touch on that. All right.
I mean,
that goes back to appearances.
Was he going to Al Capone's house after the debate or something? I mean,
know.
He had these thick pinstripes on that, just like he was going out there. He was trying to be a bigger gangster than Trump.
Listen, I respect his style, man, but listen, solid colors. All right, solid colors when you're in a debate.
Yeah, you're trying to look a little presidential. I don't recall Barack Obama coming out in any pinstripes.
You gonna show up to Kim Jong Un's house with a pinstripe suit and a fucking fedora on, dude? Like, come on.
I mean, get real. Get real.
On to the next one.
Yeah. So I mean, you also got to talk about Jeb Bush. He really. he definitely sounded like one of the more intelligent candidates on the stage there.
Yeah, even though his first name's Jeb, but
And also, you want to know what his campaign sign says? Jeb! With an exclamation point.
Well, is that in Florida or
That's everywhere.
everywhere?
His presidential.
So it's just Jeb. Just be
Jeb!
be excited about Jeb.
So when you say Jeb, you gotta say it like Jeb.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie. The guy throws across a nice persona. Okay.
Yeah, he definitely sounds like the smarter brother.
He's a likable guy, but something I want to touch on and something we talked about earlier. Not on the air, but
right.
Something we did mention earlier was that Jeb really tried to go at Donald Trump a couple times. All right.
Oh yeah.
He tried to go at him hard a couple times, but Donnie Boy shut him down.
Yeah,
and he took it.
And that was the thing, like it came off as like Donald Trump is the bully.
Yeah.
And Jeb Bush is, the kid in school he's trying to stand up for himself, but as soon as he just gets knocked down one more time, he just stayed down.
We're gonna turn this into a pseudo Jeb Bush Donald Trump argument real quick.
Right. And
okay. And what I want to bring up is last night they talked about, would you feel comfortable with Donald Trump having his finger on the button?
Yeah.
Okay. Which is kind of going to tie into what I said
Some of them
next.
really dance around that question. Holy
which is
shit.
what I'm going to tie into my next comment here. We're talking about Jeb Bush. We're talking about Donald Trump.
Yep.
Okay. Two totally different personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. While I admire the fact that Donald Trump is so straightforward, so honest, and his emotions might get in the way sometimes.
Definitely.
That's an admirable fact.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got Jeb Bush on the other hand, and while he might be the smarter Bush, there are two things that come to my mind. Do we want a third Bush in the White House? Okay, that's number one.
You gotta ask me.
Two, I saw how easily he got shut down by Donald Trump in a debate.
And Donald Trump
what is this guy?
Donald Trump.
What is this guy gonna do when a crazy ass world leader throws some pressure his way? He's gonna shut down. He's gonna shut up. Because I know dumbass Donald Trump, even though I might support some of his views, he would not buckle. I mean, he might come back with a very, very emotional response, but he would not buckle under any sort of pressure.
That was a couple problems that Donald Trump has said regarding Jeb Bush has to do with energy.
Yeah.
And Jeb definitely had his energy out there, but it's something else that you need. It's a pair of fucking cojones.
Yeah.
And for Jeb Bush, the Spanish speaking candidate, he definitely needs to, just
He probably
really...
speaks Spanish like Bloomberg, though, man. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, have you heard him sometimes? He is as fluent as it possibly gets. He sounds
shit.
He sounds like he could just, he could broadcast some ESPN Deportes.
Deportes.
So, yeah, Jeb is a really interesting candidate. There's one thing, I know it's a controversial thing to talk about, but, Trump wanted to call out Jeb Bush on the failures of his brother. A very easy attack to do.
For anyone.
And, Trump liked to go after the fact that, look at where your brother left this economy before he left office. And Jeb Bush's comeback is, well, you want to know what I got to say about my brother? One thing, he definitely kept us safe. Now, think of that for a second. My brother kept us safe. So you're meaning to tell me that, that whole attack that happened on our soil, which is considered probably one of the worst attacks ever, over 3,000 lives lost, obviously a very touchy subject, but I just needed to touch on that because it really upset me that Jeb Bush had to, use that as a defense, and probably the worst possible defense he could have used for his brother.
Yeah.
So, that's that. And going off of course, you got to go to Trump. After you go to Jeb.
Yep. Right to Trump.
Love my Jeb.
Mm-hmm.
And, on to Trump. Trump really was a controversial figure, wouldn't you think? I mean, he definitely wasn't as controversial as the first time around, but
he toned himself down just a tad.
And I think that's actually going to hurt him with this because he didn't have those big sound bites, those things that just, could you believe what Donald Trump said last night or anything like that?
I know what you're talking about.
He didn't have that only Rosie O'Donnell comment, or he didn't have any issues with any of the moderators of the debate, like the whole Megyn Kelly controversy. So how's he going to keep him in the headlines now? When the one thing that he did say was he had something on Rand Paul. Yeah. It was literally the first thing that came out of his mouth in the entire night was like, okay, well, for starters, I need to talk about I don't understand why this guy Rand Paul is here on the stage with the rest of us because he's in 11th place.
Yeah.
And Rand Paul is kind of just like, why are we talking about that?
Yeah,
And,
he basically said that it shouldn't be a topic of discussion, that we're all up here for the same, common point.
yeah, and it seemed like, that was how they started off the beginning of the first debate. It only made sense that they started off the beginning of this one. And I definitely think that Rand Paul will get himself some rise in the polls. I think that he made some very moderate points. I think we kind of touched on that before. Between him and John Kasich, and the way that they spoke about the Iran deal was very different than the majority of the party by just saying it's a bad deal, I don't like it. They were willing to at least have a thoughtful answer to it instead of just appeasing to the base.
Exactly. But I mean that's a good thing to see. You know what I mean? Because you want those guys to come out and you want them to make those points and you want to have the difference in discussion.
Right. And it really was interesting to see how that all turned out. And Trump also had another feud, I guess you can say, or just little banter back and forth with Carly Fiorina, the only female on the stage.
And let me touch on that real quick. I felt like last night she was coming out more to make a point that she wasn't going to make judgment calls, as someone who was in a weaker position. She wanted to make herself known that she was going to come in and she was going to make plans and she was going to make actions and movements as far as military movements are concerned. And that's something she brought up multiple times.
And I felt that she was a bit too unrealistically radical on certain things. Like for example, just to go onto the role of fact checking. Carly Fiorina is definitely one of those people who needs some serious fact checking. Because, for example, one of her suggestions was, why don't the United States arm the Kurds? The United States already does arm the Kurds. So she wasn't introducing a new idea there as opposed to the fact that we don't do it. So that right off the bat is a true or false question.
Yeah.
And on top of that, she was really taking the offensive on a lot of things, like trying to just build up the army in ways that aren't strategically necessary to fight these enemies in particular that she's talking about. And she was really referring to, the issues in the Middle East with ISIS, Syria, and Iran, as well as the issues with Vladimir Putin and Russia. But the real, going back to this whole banter between her and Trump, because Trump had made the comments on the article in Rolling Stone magazine where he commented on Carly Fiorina, look at that face. Would you ever want to vote for that face or have that face in the Oval Office? And obviously,
honestly, I don't really like her face too much either. But that's not.
She does definitely give off somewhat of a crazy sort of look.
That's not gonna be my deciding factor on whether or not I want to have her in office or not.
Right. But it seemed like typical Donald Trump. It seemed like a hip hop diss almost.
Easy fire. Easy fire is what it is.
He put that in a freestyle, and you know what? That probably would have got some real attention.
Well, sir.
So she really had a good comeback regarding that. Just kind of like we hear his comments on that, and I think that all the women of America should hear that loud and clear.
Yeah.
And that definitely got a lot of applause from the audience.
She wanted to title Donald Trump as a sexist.
Yeah. Just to cap off Donald Trump, I think one reason that he really didn't get the big buzz or the attention he got when he laid some of these disses onto Rand Paul and stuff like that was the fact that
he's done it before.
Well, not only the fact that he's done it before, but it has to do with the audience style of this place. It was a totally different location. You were in the big arena where the Cleveland Cavaliers play in Cleveland for the first debate. Now we're having a debate at the Reagan Library. And the Reagan Library is going to invite specific people to that event.
It's going to be a different crowd.
It's going to be totally different, and you're going to get different reaction. That's why when Trump was laying these barbs on certain people, it wasn't getting that big excited reaction from people.
He still got his response. He just didn't get his colorful response that he got at the other places.
Right, and I do think that makes a difference on whether or not the news pays attention to how, it's kind of like the amount of people that support something, even if it's just an audience, it's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So
enough with these two clowns, Trump and Fiorina. You know what I want to hear your stuff on?
Oh boy.
Chris Christie. Let's hear it, dude.
Our lovely governor that we never hesitate to discuss about on this show, of course. Chris Christie really tried to have an attitude adjustment, I feel, from the get-go when he started out this entire thing. He still tried to have his brash attitude.
All about the people.
But now it was, I want to hear about what you think. America.
Put the camera on the audience.
Put the camera
Take
on the
camera
audience
off me,
right now.
put it on the audience.
These are the people that matter. It's not about me being president. I'm going to be a server of the people. This is not the Chris Christie that is the governor of New Jersey. He does not serve to the people. If you do not live in New Jersey you do not understand the bully that this guy has been. You know, I always that's a classic line. I might as well have been dropping it in every single episode we've had.
Take a look at Bridgegate.
You take a look at Bridgegate. Take a look at the way he's handled the FEMA money with Sandy relief and the fact that he's only servicing to towns that would vote for Chris Christie as opposed to not giving as much funding to Democratic towns. This is just, the guy is...
Private schooling.
The private schooling, the way that he, has fought against a lot of teachers' unions and things of that nature. Yes, unions are a big topic that you could discuss, but he definitely crossed the line on a lot of things here in New Jersey. And you look at his financial record, you look at Jersey's credit rating, it's extremely unsuccessful. So, with that said, what do you think about Chris Christie last night? He definitely turned a lot of heads.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you're saying, me being a New Jerseyan, if you will, I know Chris Christie for what he is. Okay, I've seen what he does, and the effects it even had on us while we were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
The effects that it had, and the teachers that we all loved and we wanted to keep around our senior year. He wanted to fire all these tenured teachers.
Yeah, a lot of people that a lot of teachers that we cared about lost their jobs.
Yeah, dearly and deeply, man. Seriously.
Yeah.
And I mean, those weren't teachers that we just had. Those were teachers that people had in this town for generations.
Yep.
Aside from the town, apply some of that local decision making to what he might do while he's in office.
Exactly.
And me seeing something like that, and I'm sure some people may feel, this way about a lot of the governors that were in this debate. But me seeing someone like that who makes brash decisions like that and affects his people locally like that is not someone I'd want to see in the White House.
Right. And, I feel the reason is more because, it's all about his selfish interest. It doesn't have to do with the fact that the people of New Jersey are telling him, run, Christie, we want you
we don't want him for president.
To lead us on a national level,
Yeah.
Meanwhile, let's look at John Kasich, a guy who was the governor of Ohio, and the first Republican debate was in Ohio, and he had tons of supporters there. You might think it's a, somewhat of a stage thing and just have your supporters show up and be really loud for you. It's like inviting your friends to a concert or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just because that they support you doesn't mean that everyone supports you. But you look at John Kasich, and he is very popular as the current standing governor in Ohio. Meanwhile, when it comes to New Jerseyans, 60% don't want Chris Christie to run.
No, because like I said before, we all know what he's capable of and what he's done.
And it's something where I would prefer Donald Trump over Chris Christie as the president of these United States because Chris Christie, he scares me, honestly, because he's also, unlike Trump, he's a career politician. He really knows the inner workings of things. He was a former attorney that locked up a bunch of corrupt politicians. He knows how to get through things like that because... look at the whole Bridgegate thing. It fell back on people who worked for him as opposed to him himself.
Yeah.
And, that is what it is, and that's clearly some Jersey passion there for you on exactly why I feel, and we feel, that Chris Christie shouldn't be president of these United States.
Yep.
But going back to John Kasich, he definitely stood out alongside with Rand Paul as being somewhat of an outlier. He still preached Republican values, but he wasn't doing it in this radical way that you saw with a lot of these candidates.
Yeah. Like I said, me not knowing a lot about these guys, I really respected a lot of the points that, John Kasich brought up last night. And, it kind of led me to do a little, bit of further digging, I should say. And, look at what he does in his own state. And, some of the points you're bringing up, he's done some great stuff for his state, and he's liked.
Right.
Unlike our guy, Chris Christie, he's all over the place, man. He'd rather be in Texas hugging football owners than, being up here handling business.
Yeah, really. Speaking of governors, I think it's time we move on to a real radical guy. His name's Mike Huckabee.
Oh, the crazy Christian.
Yes. That's your perfect title for him, isn't it?
Yep, the crazy Christian.
Crazy Christian. He's the real candidate out there.
I think there's a real important topic you want to touch on with him.
Well, you could put him in a category of just being the king of the evangelicals. He's the guy who's coming in preaching a lot of religious beliefs that a lot of them honestly are surrounded by bigotry and he's looking to cater to that Bible Belt area of the United States.
He's a great talker, I'll give him that, but something
He
he's got to
really
realize.
does have good delivery. If Ben, like I was telling you off the air, if Ben Carson could have the delivery that Mike Huckabee does, while not preaching Mike Huckabee's views, he could go a lot further, and I think he's going to go farther down. So that sucks.
I agree with that. I agree with that, man. But, the guy is a great talker, which is the intoxicating part about it.
Yeah.
What he's got to realize is that the people that he's trying to appeal to, this Bible Belt community, times are changing.
They're not the majority anymore.
No, they're not.
Nope.
So he's stuck in a time period that unfortunately has passed us. So I don't think he's going to go far.
Right, and I mean, you see him, he was down there in Kentucky with Kim Davis. After Kim Davis, the woman, the marriage clerk who was refusing to give out marriage licenses to gay couples in Rowan County in Kentucky, she was released after being found in contempt of court in jail. She was in jail for a couple days. Mike Huckabee was the cheerleader for this woman, literally saying, "Take me instead," as if that's how jailing works, where you could just replace people. It's like, the way that he was acting, and then she gets released. He's hand in hand with her. Eye of the Tiger by Survivors playing in the background.
Yeah.
It's like, what is going on?
No, man, he's obviously trying to make a scene, trying to make some kind of circus, and trying to make a memorable moment so that we see him on this stage for this debate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, there's the guy that was holding hands with the lady that came out of jail.
Yeah.
That's great.
And, a little side note here, going with that big celebration,
Yeah.
Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
You know who else was there? Ted Cruz. But Ted Cruz was basically bodied by Mike Huckabee's campaign and didn't let him on the stage. Like, literally forced him, pushed him off to get on the stage. So I thought that was just a little interesting note for anyone who hasn't heard that one yet. So,
Marco Rubio
stood out as the young guy.
the young guy. I respect a lot of his points.
Didn't get a lot of time.
Didn't get a lot of time, but in the short period of time that he was up there, he was another guy that was for military action. He was about making a presence in other countries.
Very aggressive.
And he was also about making sure that the U.S. was going to be the top country and, be the person or be the country that, is going to be respected everywhere. He's, very big on the Russian presence in the Middle East. He doesn't like it at all. Mm-hmm. And, just things like that.
Yeah, and I honestly think that with Marco Rubio, what really turned me off to him was, while he was really well-spoken and did sometimes try to make a reasonable point, I know he's a Republican, I'm not going to agree with everything he says, but at the same time, his tactics were what really upset me. It's like he really had to go with this apocalyptic style of just trying to instill fear in voters, like saying, Iran is only seconds from the bomb, and thanks to Barack Obama, that is the case, and I'm going to be the one to prevent that from happening. It's like as if he's going to be a savior and acting as if Iran is clearly wanting to cause the apocalypse in a sense with nuclear weapons. It's just
that's another one of those guys where I'm kind of worried to have him in the Oval Office.
Yeah, it seems like he's very rash decision.
What call is that guy going to make under pressure?
Yeah, really. I mean, you saw how much he was sweating on that stage.
And he wasn't even talked to that much.
That was the weird thing. The first time they turned to Marco Rubio in the entire debate, his hair is just so, just dripping in sweat. And it's like, oh, boy, this guy is already feeling the pressure, and he hasn't even gotten the first question.
Finally realized what he was up there for.
Yeah, it's like, oh shit, they're going to call on me. Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know that. And speaking of other people who looked extremely uncomposed on the stage, was last but not least Scott Walker, the governor of Wisconsin.
Yo, this guy's a freaking clown.
He's just his overall look.
His persona, yeah.
It just came off as just so fake and artificial.
The argument he had with Donald Trump about his state's debt, this, that, and the other.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
And he definitely seemed to be a guy who was trying to argue about the good points of his state while covering up the bad. And, not everyone did get attacked like that, but he definitely did not defend it very well, especially...
No. And not even nearly as well as Jeb Bush.
And you know what? If he wants to get that nomination, he's going to have to defend it damn well, because Donald Trump is the leader right now.
And Donald Trump is here to play.
So that if you take Donald Trump down, you have a good chance. If you don't, and you just sit there, then you're probably not going to be able to do it.
And you're going to take some fire.
Extremely. So, looking at all these candidates, all of this is now coming together. Who do you think won?
That's tough. That's real tough.
But I think that in a better sense, maybe instead of saying who won, who gained the most ground from this debate?
I think Donald Trump lost a little ground.
You think?
I think, in my opinion, Kasich, he made a valuable.
He definitely proved that he's here to stay. He didn't.
And Rand Paul also was up there for the fight. He wanted to go from the guy in the last spot, to fight up for that first spot.
And I think the only way he can go is up, or just end the campaign at this point.
One or the other.
Because for a lot of these guys, you got to call it quits at some point.
Yeah, I mean those would be my opinions. Who lost? Who won? Donald Trump lost, and at least these two guys tried to make some headway.
So you think it was really Kasich and Rand Paul at the end of the day? No one else. What do you think about Ben Carson? Do you think he lost any ground?
Like I said, I like a lot of Ben Carson's views. I respect them. But I really, at the end of the day, I'm still looking at these people, even though it's very early on, I'm still looking at these people as potential, possible presidents.
Right.
Which is what they're here for. But at the end of the day, I'm thinking of them in the White House. I'm not thinking about what they're talking about in these conversations or what, their opinions are on certain topics.
I feel like Ben Carson lost a lot of ground from this just based on his overall delivery and also just clear signs of unexperience altogether.
Yeah.
He really,
not ready for a lot of those questions.
Inexperience, I should say. It was really just unbelievable to see him and that was the guy in second coming into that debate out of all those people.
Yeah.
It really just
surprising.
It was really surprising, and I think that's why the person that I think won the debate, who was also just an outlier, like Donald Trump's a businessman in a lot of ventures. Dr. Ben Carson's a doctor. Carly Fiorina's a CEO. She's not a career politician. She's just a career political pundit besides her business life. And, she really stood out. She was the one person who Trump toed the line to. Look at his response to when she made those comments.
Yeah.
He just said, I think Carly looks beautiful. He was for once you saw Donald Trump backtracking a little bit. And that was something that none of those other candidates really was able to do.
If he fought harder on that topic, where it would end up.
Oh, it would be worse. He's already been able to dodge so many misogynistic issues, whether it's the Megyn Kelly thing, whether it's these comments from the get-go. And those comments have managed to pass just because he had to backtrack a little bit. And you know what? Probably the smartest thing for him to do, but at the same time, makes her gain more ground. And that's what really comes out of this.
She didn't gain a whole lot of ground last night.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, from her perspectives, I don't think she gained a lot of ground.
No, but she might have gained a little bit as far as people getting to know who she was a little more, but I don't think she gained any respective ground last night.
Well, with that all said, I think a couple of the topics going into that with this debate, one of them with Carly Fiorina that easily was something that just kind of he really made you want to fact check some more based on things that she was already saying beforehand, was the debate that occurred between Rand Paul, Chris Christie, Jeb Bush, and her over marijuana and legalization over that.
Yeah.
It really took a weird turn. What'd you think about it?
I didn't like where she went with it. I didn't like the fact that she really tried to bring the spotlight. Not that it was a bad personal experience, but she brought up a personal experience that, yes, was related to drugs, but in no direct way was it related to marijuana.
Exactly. She lost her stepdaughter to drug addiction. Simple as that. And was simply trying to say that's how I'm going to be on drugs in this country. And the debate was swirling around marijuana beforehand. So she clearly was in direction of that. And she wanted to use that as a platform. When, meanwhile, fact-checking comes out the very next day and says your daughter died of prescription drugs, alcohol, and bulimia. Very sad thing, obviously. It's still a tragedy, and that's still, when it comes to hard drugs and prescription drugs, that problem should easily be addressed. But you should not be equating that entire situation when it comes to marijuana legalization. And that was what she did a lot of that night, was change the subject and dance around things, and that's the one thing
which is inappropriate.
It's very inappropriate.
Which is why I feel like she lost ground.
Yeah, and I feel that it's going to be kind of a a medium in a way, because she was the only person. Do you know the kids table debate?
Yeah.
Okay, so they had the kids table debate. She was in that debate last time, won that debate, and was the only new candidate on that stage this time around. And that made a complete difference, and she was able to gain that ground based on the first debate. Now I feel that even though she's one of those people sitting in last place, she still gets herself up a little bit, considering you're going to lose a lot of people supporting Ben Carson.
She's also the only woman in the Republican
Exactly,
Party.
and that's something that's really appealing to a lot of people if she supports their views. And that's something really important, and that's why I feel that, look at all the time that we've just touched on already talking about her. She's a very interesting political character.
Yeah.
And these discussions were really fascinating throughout this debate. A couple different ones, not including Carly Fiorina this time around, was the debate on vaccines.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, it started kind of with a question that was asked to Ben Carson.
Okay.
The question was, Dr. Carson, Donald Trump feels in a lot of ways that vaccines are a leading cause of autism. How do you feel about that? And he responded that, he had no problem whatsoever with vaccines. Not a lot of research proved Donald Trump's point. And with that said, you got to look at the way that the whole conversation went. Because Donald Trump then responds and says, no, I'm okay with vaccinations, but I like to do them in smaller dosages throughout 2 or 3 years, as opposed to the regimented schedule that, majority of the medical world out there agrees with.
Yeah.
So
he's also not a doctor.
Exactly. And then the problem was, and it really baffled me, considering you had Dr. Ben Carson and Rand Paul, who's a doctor on there, and Ben Carson's a pediatric doctor, so he should know this shit. And meanwhile, when Donald Trump made that response, Ben Carson said he wasn't entirely against that idea.
Yeah.
Saying that, they kind of met in the middle. And I feel like Ben Carson did that to appease Donald Trump, because all of a sudden the Donald Trump people are going to believe that perspective.
Yeah.
And, that was kind of something that was scary, because after they went to Ben Carson, they also asked Rand Paul the same question, and he answered it the same way.
Yeah.
These are doctors that went to medical school, and they know, the most scientific
They're also
research.
not trying to shake the ground. You know what I mean?
Exactly, This whole debate was really it was crazy.
Yeah.
It
Entertaining, to say the least.
Extremely entertaining, it really burned you out by the end of it. You were really just you just had a headache because
they put me to sleep at the end of it today.
Oh, there was just so much stuff to talk about, and needless to say, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing the Democrats debate. We've been talking about the Republican field. Don't get me wrong, it's very entertaining and I like watching it, but I want to see the guys that I'm probably going to consider voting for more, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, or even if Vice President Joe Biden decides to throw his name in the hat by the time the debate shows up in October. Who knows? But we'll definitely,
no matter what debate it's going to be, we're going to be there.
Exactly, and we're going to be keeping everyone in touch with that. So we're about to wrap it up here for the Scott and Smiz show. Of course,
absolutely.
Of course, I'm Smiz.
And I'm Scott.
Yeah, and this is a show that is about to end. So
everybody have a good night. It was nice spending some time with you, and hopefully you're here the next time around.
Yeah, I really hope you do. Be sure to keep up with all that when you like us on Facebook.com/Scott and Smiz.
Yep, and shout out to everybody listening. And maybe we'll see you down in Hoboken.
Or maybe in sunny New Brunswick.
Got me running through the 6 with my woes.
You know how that shit go.